Hello everyone, it's Trina here from thereisacardforthat.ca, and today I am going to be making a pivot pop-up card with Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. I'm going to be using the Lucky Duck stamp set from their new release, as well as the totally awesome, just some of the background pieces, the cattails and the dragonfly, to help create my scene. And so I'm going to start with a piece of 110-pound Copic-friendly cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my images using Memento Tuxedo black ink because I'm going to color in Copics. We're going to start with the front of the card, and I chose this little duck because he was the most excited of all of the little baby ducks. And I'm going to stamp the little trail and the little dragonfly, just because it's adorable. I mean, how cute is that? These two sets were completely made for each other. I'm going to mask him off with just a little mask I made with Post-it paper. And then I'm going to use some tumbled glass distress ink to create a little soft blue halo around him. So I'm just going to sponge that on, and my regular distress inks are mostly in this little pad, the smaller cube, sorry, and for whatever reason my tumbled glass just doesn't stay juicy. I don't know why. I don't have that problem with any of the other ones, but it's just one of those ones that I have to constantly be re-inking. So it's kind of something I got going on. I'm going to color the little duck here using Y15 for my darkest and Y13 for my lightest. Normally I would use 3 colors for each area, but he's so tiny. So for the feet and his little bill, I'm going to use YR04 and then YR14 for that. And then for the dragonfly, I'm going to be using BG70 and BG10, and it just creates like this soft little iridescent look to the wings just to give it a little something. And then I'm going to go over the wings with the clear Wink of Stella glitter pen, and it doesn't really pick up on film or on camera, but in real life his wings are pretty shiny. For the greeting, I'm just going to stamp I'm a Lucky Duck. Also in Memento Tuxedo black. I really like my blacks to match. And then clean that off with a baby wipe. And then I'm going to use my tape runner to just adhere that to a piece of really soft blue cardstock, cut just a little bit larger. I'm a big fan of the borders that go around the card. The card today is going to be a top folding standard A2 sized card, so 5.5 by 4.25. Sorry. And I'm just going to adhere that top down. I'm going to keep the outside really simple just because the inside is going to have the pop-up mechanism. And I like to have that wow factor when you open the card. So here I have die cut the mechanism from the pop-up die. And I slowed this down a little bit just so that you can see how the folds work. It does have score lines everywhere you need them. So you're going to hold it in front of you and you're going to fold lengthwise away from you. And then I like to use my bone folder just to get a nice good crease. And then for each of the diagonals, you're going to fold those towards you. So here I'm just folding the other ones and getting a nice good crease for that as well. And then you can fold it, and that's basically how you're going to insert it into the card when you put it there. So for the inside of the card, I have cut 2 of the pop-up papers. They're the ones that look like little file folders if you flatten them out. And I'm using some Salty Ocean, nope, sorry, that's Broken China for the darker part of my sky, and then I'm going to use more tumbled glass just to fade that in. for the background. And again, like you can see here, like the tumble glass, like I know it's a really light color, but it just doesn't stay inky for me, not like the other ones. And then I'm going to put those together using some 1/8 inch score tape. The score tape is super sticky 2-way tape, and so I'm going to just do 2 little rows of that. I'm out of my 1/4 inch score tape because that would fit perfectly, or I can't find it. I do have kids, so somebody might have gotten a hold of it. I'm not sure, but the 1/8 inch works just as well. You just need 2 layers. You just want to make sure that both of those are super attached. Like you don't want this coming apart. So then you're just going to kind of weave them together so that both the tabs are on the back, and then you're going to fold each side towards you and the middle away from you like an accordion. So I'm going to bring out my inks again, and I did cut 2 of the bases that come with the die set. And for my grass, I'm going to use Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn Distress ink. These are kind of my go-to inks for grassy areas. I really like the way they blend together. They're soft but not too soft, and it's a lot like spring, and we are so ready for spring here. We've had so much snow. Like, let me tell you guys, it's been so snowy. Like, I can't even remember a winter in my adult life with this much snow. And then yesterday it got so nice and everything started melting, and then we got a weather alert that we're gonna get more snow, like almost a foot of it, 20 centimeters here in Canada, and I'm so done with winter. I'm so done with winter. It's just so sad. Everything's gray and the snow is yucky and it's just not awesome. So for these, they do have a score line that shows you how to line them up onto the background piece. So I'm just going to add again more of the tape runner and line those up on each side just so I get this really nice hill. And having that score line really helps you to keep it straight so that the folding mechanisms still fold properly the way they're supposed to. And put that on there, and again, fold it, squish it flat. Like, I can't even tell you how many times this needs to be squished before it works absolutely perfectly. For the top part of my card, because I didn't want it to be super plain, I'm just using a piece of cardstock that was light blue, and I had used some broken china around the edges just to get a little bit of color in there. And then I am going to be using more distress inks to color up this sun that I had cut. This is also a Lawn Fawn die, and I'm using Squeezed Lemonade for the base of the sun. And then I'm going to go in with Wild Honey just to add a little bit of gradient to the sun, and just so it's not flat and boring and plain. And I wish there was sun. I wish it was sunny here. It's not. So I'm going to put those away, and then I'm going to go and line this up after I get all cleaned up. Like, I get distress ink everywhere. I've had it on my face, and I've gone shopping, and people look at me like I'm crazy, and then I come home, and I'm like, oh, that's why I have ink all over my face. Just one of those things. So I'm using some Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue to adhere the sun down. And there was a little bit of a crinkle in that pattern paper when I had sponged it, so the sun is going to cover that up nicely. And then I'm going to add adhesive to my mechanism. Now, if I had 1-inch score tape, I would have just used 1 inch, but this 1/2 inch tape works great. So I'm just going to do 2 layers. I want to make sure that both sides of the triangle part are completely covered, because that's the part that actually attaches inside the card. So you want to make sure that that is really secure. So I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to fold the adhesive that had hung over back on itself. It does make it a tiny bit thicker, but this stuff is pretty thin, so it's not a big deal. Like, it does stick together a little bit. I mean, I guess I could have cut it at an angle, but I'm kind of lazy, so it's just like that. So I'm going to remove all of the backing pieces, fold those over, making sure that nothing is attached to the other side. And then you look through this little peephole to see your crease line, and you want the crease lines of the mechanism to line up with the crease line in the back of the card. And then you just close it like a book and squish it super flat, and then that is how it opens. So I'm going to take more of the 1/2 inch score tape, and I'm going to put that on these little tabs on the side. I had tried doing this a couple of different ways before, and I had found that this way works the best for me. Like, when you have this, you're going to have to play around and figure out what works best for you. For me, just holding it open and flat, it just made the most sense. It takes a lot of the guesswork out and a lot of the thinking. At the inside edge of that tab, there is a score line that lets you know where to stop the adhesive so that you don't go over into under where the angle is. And then you're going to have that flat, and they do have little tiny, they're like score lines, but they're really just indicators where you can line up the very center of the folding piece to the score line so that everything is straight and it folds properly. It does take a few folds back and forth and squish it flat again, just to get the mechanism working the way it wants to work so that it opens nicely. And then I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to start working on the little guys I'm going to have on the inside. So I'm going to have this larger duck, and I'm coloring it with the same oranges for his bill and his feet. But this duck himself is going to be white. So I'm going to use the cool grays in C0, 1, and 3, starting with my darkest in the areas where I would want the shadow. So the underside of his belly, the parts where his wings would attach, and then I'm going to blend that out with my C1. Now my blend here is not awesome. I think my C1 needs to be refilled. I just haven't gotten to it. And then I'm going to go over everything with the C0 just to blend that out. Now here he looks a lot grayer than he will, and that's because the paper is wet. So don't be afraid to go over him completely. If afterwards, and he's completely dry, you think he's still too gray, by all means go over it with your 0 or your colorless blender, and then it'll lighten it up. But once the paper dries, he's actually a lot whiter than he looks. So I do have a whole bunch of little ducks, and you'll see that later on. I'm only going to show you coloring 2 because they're literally all exactly the same. I wanted a whole little lineup of ducks for the type of card I'm going to make here, and this video is almost 17 minutes as it is, so you didn't need to watch me color like 9 ducks. And you'll see over there that I have a log, and that log comes from the Totally Awesome, just like these cattails. It wasn't until a little bit later that I discovered the log was not going to fit where I wanted it, so I cut out the coloring and everything like that. I didn't need to use the log at all. And the cattails, super simple coloring. For the darker area, I just went over it a second time. Here I'm going to cut off the edges of my sun because my glue is all adhered in place. And then I'm going to run all of my little elements through my Xyron X sticker maker. So I had some stitch clouds from a previous project, and I'm going to run those through, as well as my ducks, the cattails, and all of the little ducks. And then I like to use my bone folder to really, really press that down in the back. I don't want the adhesive coming off or areas not being sticky. I just want the whole thing done. You can go around it as well. If it was a more intricate die like a snowflake or something like that, I would probably go into all the little grooves and the little areas. But for these ones, it's pretty basic. If the adhesive is poking out, like you can see right here in the cloud, I just use my nail and bend that back in place. And then I'm going to cut off the little edge from this cloud, and then I'm going to start adhering my cattails. I had wanted it to go behind it, but I was enthusiastic about my gluing here, so it just has to go on the edge. And so I'm going to put those in place, and I have to be careful because I'm not doing this as like a single layer with masking, because these are all extra pieces of paper. You don't want anything to hang over any of the crease lines. If it does, it's going to be harder to fold the mechanism, and there's a chance that when it opens and closes, the smaller piece will lose its stickiness and start to pop up, and nobody wants that. You don't want things falling apart. For the greeting on the inside, then I'm actually using part of the sentiment from Lucky Duck. I'm going to use "to have you as my," and then I'm using "teacher," sorry for my head there, from the Good Apple, Your Good Apple teacher stamp set. It's a much older one from Lawn Fawn that I just love, because this card is actually going to go to my daughter's kindergarten teacher, she's just amazing. All I hear all day long is, "My teacher says this and my teacher says this," and it's so great. She just absolutely loves going to school. So I'm just adding some glossy accents to the outside of the dragonfly's wings, and that is the card for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day. Bye!